I flat out did not believe, which this is insane now, even just thinking about it out loud, that I was more important than a job, a meeting, something that someone else had asked me for. I was putting myself at the bottom of that hierarchy list. And that perception of productivity means that you're just hurtling towards burnout. The reality of that is it's unsustainable. But getting more done and getting the things you want done and getting closer to your goals, that is not unattainable. Welcome back to Organized Chaos. I'm your host, Regan, and I am so very happy that you're here. Make sure that you have a drink, a cozy place, somewhere that you can kind of sit down, snuggle up. Today, we are going to chat about a concept that I actually really love and I think is so important for us all to be able to have more candid conversations around it, which is productivity. I've dropped hints into some of my previous videos about productivity and some of my viewpoints on it, primarily around how there's such a culture of competition in today's world that I think it's hard to really get to the root of changing the way that we view productivity. In today's conversation, I wanted to chat about how reframing the concept of productivity really changed my relationship with myself, with work, how it helped me de-stress in ways that I really wouldn't have been able to do beforehand. If you're anything like me, I'm sure you sit there and think about how can I get more done? And there are so many things in our to-do list just sitting in our head that I know I often catch myself going, how do I get more done? The fact that I'm tired or I'm hungry or I'm thirsty, I'm just going to plow through all of that and I'm going to focus in on getting the things checked off my to-do list. But then I end the day with a headache. I end the day with a stomach ache. I feel like I'm constantly in this stress state. And a big part of my healing journey has been taking a step back from that and rethinking my own relationship with productivity and my own relationship with stress and finding small ways or big ways throughout the day that I can really start to remove that. I was having a conversation earlier with one of my friends about the differences between coaching in the US and coaching in Europe. And coaching programs in the US, you've seen Tony Robbins before, is often really based on productivity. Get shit done. Get shit done as fast as you can. If you aren't waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning, then you're doing something wrong. If you don't have 5 friends in your back pocket that you can go and call and ask for $100,000, no questions asked, you are doing something wrong. And the reality of that is it's unsustainable. But getting more done and getting the things you want done and getting closer to your goals, that is not unattainable. That is 100% attainable. And there are ways that you can go about it. I've definitely changed my relationship with it over the last couple of months and have taken huge strides towards my goals by just chipping away every single day. Had you asked me 2 years ago, even probably 6 months ago, and told me, well, Regan, if you just stay focused and you stay consistent and you chip away at all these things every single day and you don't have a meltdown and get sucked into this tornado of stress, you'll still get closer to your goals, I would have told you, no, there's no way that unless I am burning the midnight oil, I'm not going to get everything done on time. So maybe that's what you're struggling with. You're struggling with creating this healthy relationship around productivity. Or maybe your issue is, hey, at work, I'm actually so freaking productive. But if you ask me to get things done in my home life, there's no way that I'm going to be able to go about it because by the time I get home, I am exhausted. Well, the two of those things actually blend together. When I worked in corporate, I was on it. You asked me to do a project and I had it done. No questions asked. I did it to 120% and I had it done likely sooner than you even asked for it. I had to-do lists. I was organized. I was the one with the templates that people typically came to in order to base their own work off of. But in my personal life, I was different. If I had to pay taxes, make doctor's appointments, go grocery shopping, do laundry, do things for my own personal life, I found it so difficult to actually check those off my to-do list because I wasn't prioritizing them. I wasn't making time. I wasn't making space. It was because my priorities were so out of whack. I wasn't putting myself first. I was putting everything else above me. I flat out did not believe, which this is insane now, even just thinking about it out loud, that I was more important than a job, a meeting, something that someone else had asked me for. I was putting myself at the bottom of that hierarchy list. But the statement that if you are on a plane and the oxygen masks drop down, you need to help yourself before you can really help someone else is so true. I didn't believe it before because my self-confidence and that love that I've developed for myself was so separate. And that perception of productivity means that you're just hurtling towards burnout. You're going to constantly get stuck in this hamster wheel of work hard, work hard, work hard, work hard, work hard, burnout. and then frantically get all of your life things done. You still need to go to the doctor. You still need to eat food, right? Like all of these different parts of your life still matter. But if you're not prioritizing them, there's no way it's going to get done in the way that really respects you, respects your life, and builds a relationship with yourself that you can feel good about and be proud of. I read a really interesting book last year called Facing Codependence. Now stay with me. I promise that this is all going to make sense as I pull it together. But it talked about the concept of knowing that you are enough as you are today. Knowing that you are enough as you are, no matter what you're wearing, whether or not you have makeup on, your relationship status, like the fact that you are here today means that you are enough and you are worthy of love. But so many of us actually don't believe that. And it's a really hard concept to hear, and it's a really hard concept to even talk about. I remember listening to it in the book. I was walking along a beach in Biarritz. We were doing the digital nomad thing for a year, and we were in Biarritz, and I was walking along listening to this book, and I put it down because I was like, no, there's no way that I'm codependent. My thought on codependency was that you tied your personality to someone else, whether that was a friendship or a relationship, familial, romantic, platonic, whatever it was. And I didn't realize that codependence can actually be so much more. It really is tying your self-worth to what other people think about you. That difficulty with self-worth, that difficulty with self-confidence and self-love follows us through into adulthood in really sneaky and really tiny ways. When I was in my 9 to 5, I tied so much of my personality to pleasing others, which meant that I would have rather burnt out on the job to fulfill someone else's expectations of me. I mean, God forbid that they were angry at me for any reason, and actually take care of myself or sit back and think to myself, is this something that I actually want to do? So a lot of the jobs, a lot of the responsibilities, a lot of the paths that I took in life were really to please somebody else. I wasn't asking myself, is this going to help me achieve what I want to in the long term? So to give an example, if I was at work and somebody sent me a message and said, hey, Regan, do you know this particular client that I'm talking to? And can you give me a rundown on their situation? Now, instead of sitting there and thinking to myself, am I the right person to do this? Should I be spending my time in this 30-minute, hour-long meeting with them? This is going to get this person closer to their goals, right? Which is ultimately good for the company. I think sometimes you do need to balance those two things. You are going to need to do things for other people that maybe don't get you as close to your goals because that's who you are. I love that part about myself. I love that I will put other people first in some circumstances, but it cannot be in every single circumstance. What I wasn't doing was thinking to myself, is this going to help me in my position? Is this going to burn me out? Do I have the energy to actually sit down and have a conversation with this person? Should I be getting something else done? Am I going to end up doing my own work later on this evening because I've spent an hour with this person? Is this a conversation that needs to be had today, or can we push it back to next week, to next month, to next quarter, depending? So these are questions that I really needed to get comfortable with asking, but it was so scary because God forbid, again, that somebody didn't like my answer. God forbid I said no to somebody. Imagine if your friend were in a relationship where they were constantly putting someone else before themselves, like they were constantly putting their boyfriend, their husband, somebody else before themselves. You'd probably be worried, right? Like you might say something to them. You might go, hey, I'm concerned that you're not going out, that you're not taking care of yourself, that you're making sure that you're cooking dinner, cleaning the house, taking on all these responsibilities for this other person who's not really holding their weight in the relationship and they're not setting boundaries. Why don't we talk to ourselves in that same exact way? Why aren't we catching ourselves when we fall into these traps of people pleasing or being overly concerned with what other people think about us? It's so easy to get kind of sucked down into this rabbit hole, into this hamster wheel, if that's even the phrase, of I'm so concerned with what other people think about me, I'm not even going to dictate where my own life is going to go. That was the relationship that I had with work and that I had with everyone around me. I was, unfortunately, the textbook definition of codependency. And if you're sitting there and you're nodding along or you have that uncomfortable feeling in your stomach, it is okay. You are safe here. We're going to chat about it. And the conversation really starts now. You are not too late in order to build that self-confidence, in order to build that self-love, and ultimately respect yourself and show yourself that respect by setting boundaries, by saying no, by creating goals that feel attainable and productive for you in your life based on where you are. I see you. I would have been in your same exact position years ago. Past Regan is nodding along with you. It will be okay. I promise. We are going to get hardcore vulnerable today. So strap in. Let's do this thing. Now, when I say it out loud, it sounds a little bit fucked up. I'm not going to lie, but I really want this video to focus on how you can shift your own opinion of productivity. So what is productivity, right? Like at its core, it's getting you closer to your goals. It's checking things off your to-do list to get you closer to whatever you want to achieve. And I'm not really talking about the goal of getting that promotion or buying your house. I'm actually thinking about a wider goal of Why are you here? What do you want to do? And how are you going to get closer to achieving that? Those are means to an end. The promotion, the house, the goal. I mean, what put you on this earth? What is your why? Why are you showing up every single day to this job? Is it because you want financial freedom? That's a great reason. If you want financial freedom to go and buy a home and make sure that you can spend time with your family, great. If you want financial freedom so that you can go and you can travel, great. Then stay in that job. Do the thing that is going to get you closer to achieving the goal of what you ultimately want to achieve, and that's going to bring you happiness. But if your goal is to be a coach and you're really driven and fueled by helping people find their purpose in life, and you're sitting in a sales job, well, I'm not sure that's exactly going to help you get closer to that goal. And a lot of this has to do with our own mindset. If we're not careful, we'll end up living our lives for somebody else instead of for ourselves. And that for me is one of my greatest fears. I do not want to live my life for anybody but myself. I mean, even sitting in front of you, filming this, recording this, depending on if you're listening to it on YouTube or on Spotify, it's vulnerable. It's scary. Sometimes I get trapped by this fear of actually showing up and being vulnerable. But then I remember I don't want to work a 9-to-5 job. I've always wanted to own my own thing, to own my own business. I'm fueled by being able to help people, by being able to spend time with people. It was why I made certain decisions when I was younger. I wanted to go into hospitality for that exact same reason. But as I worked in hospitality, I realized I was missing something. I was missing that connection with people, and I was missing the emotionality of it, the psychology of it. So moving over into this space, into the creator space, is so much more fulfilling for me. Even though it's scary to show up, it's scary to show up every single week in front of you all and be this vulnerable. It gets me closer to that goal. So my hope for you is that you can take a look at your life and go, what do I want and how can I tangibly start to get there? Now, don't get me wrong, you are so allowed to forget to do laundry because you've decided to stay late at your job to take an extra meeting or take an extra phone call if that's ultimately fueling you, if that's getting you closer to what you want to do. You are not allowed to go and forget to do laundry, forget to shower, forget to eat, give yourself a headache, make yourself nauseous because somebody else is asking you to stay when in reality, you don't want to be there at all. It's so far away from what your ultimate goal is. If that doesn't make you look forward to the next however many years of your life, well, let's change that. You have all of the power to change it within you. Now, my therapist and I talk about the concept of being messy all the time. So I don't want you to hear that you have to be perfect, that you have to have it all figured out, because you absolutely do not. I'm not asking for you to be perfect here. I'm asking for you to be intentional. One of the big goals of my life in the last couple of years has been to be intentional, to make intentional decisions. What is the phrase? Where your mind goes, your energy flows. That is what I want you to be thinking about. So let's talk about goal setting. What are your long-term goals? Mine are things like building a family, building a career that gives me ultimate flexibility, spending time with my family, having that financial stability. And everything I do, I really try to align back to those goals. Now, I'm not going to achieve those in one single day. So we are going to need to pull out what the smaller goals are within that. But if we can really focus on what our why is and how we can trickle everything that we do back up into it, the ideas, the goals, the actions that we take on a day-to-day basis are going to be so much easier and so much more fulfilling for us to continue to take steps towards. I prioritize my day every single day based on the goals that I just mentioned. It's the reason why I quit my 9-to-5. It's the reason why we became digital nomads. It's the reason why I started working with a functional nutritionist. It's the reason why I want to move back to California. We're trying to be intentional about the direction we're heading. I read back through my journal entries the other day from 2022. This is why it's so interesting to have these journal entries that you can go back and reflect on, because oh my God, my definition of productivity was so different 2 years ago compared to what it is today. I wasn't giving myself space to grow outside of my career. And so my work became my primary focus and my only priority. Ultimately, it boiled down to not knowing how to put myself first. When you quit your 9-to-5, you're so used to sitting down at your desk, showing up, logging in, being held there on Slack, that it can be really difficult to start to create your own schedule, to think to yourself, how do I actually work best? So when I had so much time on my hands, it felt like I wasn't being productive because I wasn't getting pulled into those silly 30-minute meetings, hour-long meetings. I didn't have a day of back-to-back meetings where I wasn't really getting anything done except for sitting and having conversations with people. Now, sometimes that can be productive. Sure, you need to have brainstorms, but in large part, so many of those meetings on your calendar can actually be emails. If I have to sit on one more unnecessary meeting, I am going to explode. The thing that is so safe and attractive about work is that it is so well defined. So no part of me is saying that you need to quit. What I'm saying is let's provide some of that structure to your day-to-day life. Let's provide some of that structure to your personal life. The scariest part about adulthood that I've realized as I've really come into my own is that I can do whatever the hell I want to do with it. Because when the world is your oyster, it can feel really overwhelming. When someone says to you, you can do whatever you want, all of a sudden that can feel like, wait, I don't even know what I want. How do I even get close to knowing what I want? But that's the fun part. That's the part that I want us to go and explore. That's the part that I want us to go and really think about and be intentional with and start to experiment with. But in order to start experimenting with it, we have to build a structure. So if you're struggling with that, here's my advice. One of the things that really helped me redefine and reprioritize my own life, but really be able to take a bird's eye view, is this exercise called the Wheel of Life. If you're a coach or have worked with a coach in the past, you may have even done this, but this one in particular really put into perspective which areas of my life I was prioritizing, but which areas of my life I wasn't and really needed to, because it splits your life into 8 different spokes. So effectively, you can have a big sheet of paper and you're supposed to do this every single year. You can come back and revisit it. And you can think about what are the 8 areas of my life that are most important to me. For me, these were things like physical health, mental health, financial stability, inner family, my outer family. So my inner family was Philip and our bunnies, and my outer family were my chosen family, my brother, my mom. And then you rate each one out of 10 based on how well you think you're doing with it. So at the time, I really wasn't prioritizing my physical health. I had stomach aches, I had headaches. To be fair, it's very similar to where I am now, but I feel much better because I'm working with a functional nutritionist. I'm actively trying to get out of that. I'm actively trying to heal myself. I feel much better about where I am, though I continue to complain about a lot of these symptoms. We're taking active steps towards it. Regardless, I was not prioritizing any of that. I had no idea what was going on in my body other than the fact that I had celiac. And so I rated that something like a 2 out of 10. My mental health was really struggling. I was having panic attacks. I was exhausted. I was very burnt out, but I kept thinking that I need to get something done. I need to get something done. So I would get frozen. I would just get stuck in front of my computer, not knowing how to continue working. Once I shifted that, I actually started to achieve the things that I wanted to achieve. I launched this podcast. I launched this YouTube channel. I made connections with other entrepreneurs. I got my first client. I actually started to check off all of the boxes that I had wanted to check off for myself. Once you assign a number or a value of how you're doing in each one of those areas, then you sit down, you close your eyes, and you think to yourself, what do I want these areas of my life to look like in the next year? And you write it down in detail, in so much detail, in excruciating detail, to the point of I would be wearing this and doing this, making this much money, or setting this boundary statement, or spending time with this person, or traveling to these locations. Like, you start to set down these things, but you can see that work within that wheel was just one small part of a much larger wheel. So once you've done that, then we can go on to the second part of goal setting, which is let's look at what we want to achieve in order to get us closer to those goals, in order to get us closer to achieving everything that we've written down in our life wheel. And my favorite system is the 12-week year. The idea is by implementing this system, you can actually get more done in 12 weeks than most people get done in 12 months, so in a year. So you outline your goals into quarters. You're supposed to choose 3 goals per quarter. I actually built my own Notion template because that's who I am. But if you're interested in finding a Notion template of your own so that you don't need to go and build it out, there are a ton of examples on Etsy. I'll actually drop some into the description box below for you to peruse. The idea here is you track step by step 3 different goals, and then under those goals, you put action items. And then you track for 12 weeks how close you're getting to those action items. So for me, my goals for this quarter are to get consistent with content creation, grow on YouTube, and find a wellness routine. I thought about what do I need to do every single day in order to get closer to that goal. So for wellness, I need to take my supplements. I want to start working by 9:30 in the morning. For content creation, I want to film at least 1 video a day so I can get really used to being vulnerable on camera. Think about for you, what 3 goals will help you get closer to achieving everything that you wrote down in your wheel of life, and start slowly chipping away at it. Let's reframe productivity to be focused more on how can we make sure we're living a holistically productive life, and not just a productive life in checking everything off our to-do list of what we need to do at work, getting closer to that promotion, because there will never be a time, I say this all the time, that people stop asking you for things. The work will always be there, but you deserve the rest. You need the rest in order to come back stronger. But you also deserve to live a life that is so much more holistically well-rounded instead of just being intensely focused on one particular area. Now, you're allowed to focus on that one particular area if it's in an acute moment, but to just constantly burn yourself out doesn't make sense anymore. Now, all of this doesn't need to be done alone either. I talked about the concept of building a team in some of my previous episodes. If you haven't listened to that episode, make sure you go back and take a listen to this one. I'm putting it right up on the screen. If you're listening in on Spotify, I will put it down in the show notes below. Remember, it's not all you. We are here to support you every single step of the way. You can build a team, whether that's with family, friends, someone who comes and helps clean your house, if you get groceries delivered, if you have massages every so often, your functional nutritionist, for example. These are all people that are going to help you get closer to those goals. They're going to help you live a life that feels so much more balanced. If you want to learn more about the ways that I think about self-care, and those are not things like getting your nails done, make sure you also watch the video that I'm going to link below, because the two of these match together so well. We're going to sit you down, lay out the goals that you want to achieve, and then what we're going to do is help you get really focused in on how you can build support for yourself as you are achieving that goal. That brings us to the very end of this episode. As always, thank you so much for listening. I'm Regan, and this has been another episode of Organized Chaos. I wish you all a very wonderful week and sending you all so much love. Thank you for sticking around. Mwah. I will see you next time. Bye, everyone.